This is an example of what not to do. That is punky, bug-ridden, on the ground, wet wood. Yeah, look at that. Actual mold growing on it. And wet as can be. Yeah, it's full of bugs in there. Look at that. Full of ants. Nice. So, nasty, nasty, nasty crap. It's partially off the ground, but the stuff on the bottom is just going to rot. Today on In the Woodyard, I'm still on vacation. We're going to talk about firewood and how not to store it. Here we go. So here's the beautiful view from our bay that we're in. There's a lot of lily pads and weeds in this bay. But once you get out to the main part, which is on the other side of the island over there, you go around and it's a couple 100-acre lake, and it's wide open, really nice lake. A lot of cottages, one resort, but very nice. For those of you that are wondering, yes, we've been out on the water. Yes, we have spent a lot of time on the pontoon. Yes, we did a lot of swimming. Yes, I did some fishing. No, I didn't catch hardly anything. There's not a lot of fish in this lake. I mean, there's some, but nothing great. I mean, I caught a couple dozen fish, but if I kept them, I would have made maybe a couple meals worth. Nothing real big, so I just let them go. Mainly bluegills, smallmouth bass, and little northern and stuff like that. So yeah, we're kind of in a bay. There's a up in that corner over there, there's a spring fed. So as you can see, I'm going to step off the pontoon here, and I'll show you the water. It's actually quite clean water, as you can see. It's well, there's a fish right down there. If you guys can see the bluegill down there in the water. I don't know if you can see him, but there he is. There's a bluegill. Yeah, the water is actually quite clean, spring fed. So like a lot of the lakes up here, they're more glacial lakes, which means pretty darn clean lakes. So I'm gonna head up to the cottage now, and we're gonna show you some ugly wood. So here's an example of some wood they have down by the water here. See how punky that wood is? That is birch, which was, I'm sure it was dead when they cut it. And the rest of this looks like it's red oak, from what I can tell. Looks like it's been dead for a long time because it's very weathered, very cracked, very deep cracks all the way through. This was down here by the water. I think there was a tree somewhere. I saw a stump here that they cut up, but they piled it up. It's partially off the ground, but the stuff on the bottom is just going to rot, especially seeing as it's birch. There's also some white pine in here, I see, but there you go. There's a bunch of wood. I'm going to go up to where they have their wood stored. Now this place, the guy that owns it has only owned it for about a year now. And the people he bought it from had a bunch of wood they left here. And the owner told us, oh, because we asked, you know, what do we need to bring? What do you got? We paid to use the pontoon. It's not ours, so the boat we didn't use, but we used the pontoon. But he said there's good firewood here. We have stacks and stacks of it. Don't need to bring any wood, because that's always an issue if you need to bring it. I want to walk over to where he's got some wood stored. You're going to be appalled. So here is one of the piles of wood that he has here. This is an example of what not to do. It's completely covered right down to the ground. He's even got logs on it holding it down, so you know, for those of you that have wood, all the moisture is inside there because it comes up from the ground. Here's another one. They got logs onto it, and I opened this up yesterday to pull a couple chunks out, and then here's another pile he's got down here that also has a heavy tarp on it and is covered right down to the ground, so that wood is not breathing. Now, I opened up this one first yesterday, and I'm going to show you what's inside. This is interesting. This is the quality that's in here. Take a look at that. That is punky, bug-ridden, on the ground, wet wood. Even the stuff up on top has mold growing on it, and it's still wet. I mean, it's actually wet inside. That's up on top. That's almost 3 feet off the ground. So terrible wood. Now, it's not the guy that owns this place's fault. This is how it's been here since he bought it. So that's just the way it is. I'll show you the other one up here. And they got wood just sitting on the ground here, which is, you know, in the shade, on the ground. It's going to rot. Here's another one I opened up, and there's actual mold growing down here. These pieces are just soaking wet on the inside down here. And then the third one I haven't even opened up yet. We'll open up this one down on the end here and see what this one looks like. This one's probably the newest, I'm guessing. But there's water sitting on the tarps. Let's see what's in here. Oh no, this is new wood here. Okay, so this is new wood. This wood is not been here that long. You can tell by looking at it, it's fairly fresh cut. But again, it's stacked right on the ground and it's covered up. And look at, see how moist the dirt is? The dirt is actually wet underneath it. So all that wood I can see is wet on the bottom here. So that means all that wood on the bottom is wet. It's not drying, it's molding. And here you can see this piece. It's very heavy. yeah, this is fresh cut, so not split at all. So that's obviously not good either. But there you go. You get to see what the wood looks like. And so yeah, it's all covered up completely, top to bottom. Moldy, dusty, buggy, bad wood. And then here's the first one again down here. I'm going to open up this end so you can see what this end looks like down here. I'm going to pull some of this stuff off. This is the top part of it. Yeah, look at that. Actual mold growing on it. And wet as can be. Yeah, it's full of bugs in there. Look at that. Full of ants. Nice. So, nasty crap. So, for those of you that store wood, don't cover it down to the ground. You've got to have it breathe, even if it's already dry, especially if it's already dry. There's really no reason to cover it unless you're trying to keep snow off it. Now, that's what I do in my wood yard. I generally leave my wood uncovered, but on pallets stacked off the ground, and I leave it uncovered all year, except before the snow comes. That's when I cover it. So now I'm heading back down to the water because I'm going to go down here for a little while and just sit down on the dock and relax, talk to you guys. Now, if you're covering your firewood top to bottom, you're keeping all the ground moisture in because the water wicks up from the ground and gets into the wood. It'll go through the wood, through the pieces, if it's making contact with the ground. So you want to get it off the ground. And the fact that it's covered is going to keep all that moisture that's wicking up inside of there. So the wood's not breathing at all. And that's a bad thing. The wood needs to breathe just like you. Otherwise, it will stay moist on the inside. You want your wood to dry out as much as possible. It's evening now. The sun is starting to set. People are starting to head out on their pontoons to go for their boat rides for the evening. We were out all day long, so we're kind of wanting to take it easy and not be outside. So when I cover the wood that I have, like I said, I do it late in the year in the fall, just before it snows, and I cover just the top and maybe a little bit on the sides so the water can flow over it. But the sides and the ends, always open. You want the wind and the sun to hit it as much as possible, which is why I don't cover it in the actual summertime. I want the sun to hit it all the time. And a lot of people ask me, well, what do you do to keep the rain off? I don't do anything to keep the rain off. If you've got your wood stacked with any kind of a slope to it at all on the outside edges, which is what I try to do a lot of times, the wood will run off and down. I've had as much as 2 inches of rain on my wood, and I've gone to deliver it the next day, and by the time you get down about a foot into the wood, everything below that is dry. So the stuff on the inside is actually not getting any rain on it because the water will flow off of it, off the ends. And if you've got your wood covered, it's going to run off as long as it is not covered down to the ground. But one of the things you got to realize too is that wood that's on that top 1 foot is getting hit by wind and sun more than all the rest of the wood. Any of the water that gets on there from rain is going to evaporate and dry because of the wind and sun. So that is actually good. So the higher you go with your stacks, the better it's going to dry, the better it's going to stay dry, the more wind it'll catch. So going 6, 7, 8 feet high, nothing wrong with that at all, except if you've got woodchucks, or if you're going to have that freeze and thaw of the ground where your pallets can actually tip and you can lose a pile of wood. Don't ask me how I know, but I've seen it happen to guys. Wood falls over. Now, one of the things a lot of people think they should do if they're in the wood stacking wood is they stack it between trees. You can do that, but if you're going to do it, make sure the tree you're stacking it against is absolutely huge. Because if you take a tree that is even, say, 2 feet across and smaller, or that size, that tree rocks constantly. And I've seen lots of piles tipped over in people's woods because they had it stacked between trees. So you want big trees because you get a lot of wind. That tree is just rocking all the time. And that constant movement makes so that the wood will tip over. Now, one of the things you can do to avoid that, you put the wood on pallets, and then you put a pallet against the tree, and then have the wood against the pallet going between trees. And that seems to work a lot better because it doesn't rock nearly as much. Just the pallet is doing the moving on the wood pile instead of the actual wood. So that does help a little bit. Now, one of the things you can cover wood with, especially if you're in the woods, is tins, old tins or old aluminum. If you can get construction materials that are leftovers or extras, that works really good. Plastic works good, but again, only if you do the top. I use a lot of tarps, and the tarps I'm using are actually billboards that are old ones that they take down. I cut them into sizes that will fit on top of my wood. Most of my wood is stored in full cord stacks or continuous full cords, which means I'd have a full cord, and another full cord. And then I cut my tarps so that they are 5 feet by 9 feet generally. And the reason I do that is I've got a little bit of edge all the way around, and then I just overlap them. Now I used to cut really big tarps and then cover the top of the wood with them. But the problem with that is if it's windy out, it's hard to get it on, and then if you get a problem with it, it's hard to readjust it. Like if you get a pile that tips a little bit one way or the other, or if you get a puddle in the middle of it, you got that whole tarp to deal with. I find that the smaller sections are easier to deal with, so that's what I would recommend. Looks like the sun is going down now. It's that time of day. I think I'm going to go up and enjoy the fire now. I'm going to go make some schmoes. That's what we call them. So that's it for today, folks. You know what to do. Hit the buttons. Tomorrow, I'll be back in the wood yard, and that's going to be at 5:30 a.m., just like every day for the last 2 years. And if you can't wait that long, go to my channel. Check it out. There's over 800 videos for you to watch. They're waiting just for you. Go now. Good night, Irene.